All right. It says that we are live. Can I get a what in the chat? If you're in the chat, I'm just gonna be blasting this on my social media. So you guys are gonna have to give me like 5 seconds and then we'll get started with the second episode of the All NBA podcast. So just give me a second. Just gotta upload this video here. All right. Gotta put the link, you know what I mean? Add that URL on Instagram so we can get more people in the chat so we could talk. Hashtag all NBA pod. The draft was crazy, guys. Can't wait to talk to it about you or talk to you about it. I can't multitask, as you could tell, even though this is a one-man show. Okay. All right. Welcome to the second episode of the All NBA podcast with yours truly, Geronman. Obviously, the draft has officially taken place last night, and we are going to be reacting to pretty much every pick. And we're going to go through all of them and really just give my thoughts. And hopefully, we have some fans of the teams who were lucky enough or unlucky enough to participate in the NBA draft lottery and pick a guy who they think is going to help their franchise win games and hopefully championships in the near future. Let's start things off, as always, with number one pick, Phoenix. They did it, guys. They went with DeAndre Ayton. It was reported early. I didn't believe it, and then I started to believe it as we got closer and closer to the draft. It came out to be true. The Suns, it looked like they knew who their guy was very early on because, like I said, it had been reported. They ended up taking DeAndre Ayton, but they also got Mikal Bridges in this draft, who is a top 10 pick. Now, the Sixers originally took Mikal Bridges with the 10th pick, but Phoenix traded Zaire Smith, the 16th pick, and a 2021 first round pick from the Heat. I believe that pick is unprotected. Now, who won this trade? Well, I think it's a good trade for both teams. I'm a little concerned that Phoenix has too many young players that they won't be able to develop all at the same time. But that's almost like an embarrassment of riches there. It's never a bad thing to have a lot of talent. And it looks like they have a lot of talent, at least on paper, because I love Ayton. I love Mikal Bridges. I thought Mikal was a top 6 talent in this draft. He fell to 10. Phoenix got him. So they got a solid starting lineup. I mean, talking about Booker, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, Josh Jackson, TJ Warren. That could be their 5 guys right there. Maybe they want to throw in a point guard or more traditional 4 at the power forward position, but I think they got a lot of talent there. And I think they're going to be an intriguing team in like 2-3 years. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch how they grow. But as far as the trade, I think the 76ers have a slight edge with this trade because of that 2021 first round pick that is coming from the Miami Heat, which again, I think is unprotected. And when you think about the Heat now, sure, they're a solid team. They're going to win games. That's not a great pick. But if you think about the Heat in 2021, 3 years from now, who's going to be on that team? Hassan Whiteside won't be there. You know, Dwayne Wade's probably going to be retired. Goran Dragic, you never know. He tends to be unhappy towards the end of his contracts. At least that's how it was in Houston and Phoenix. So the Heat in 2021 could be not a good team, which means that pick is going to be very good. And it looked like to me that the 76ers, they liked Mikal Bridges, but they also like Zaire Smith, who a lot of people like in this draft. A lot of you, I remember in the last chat, they said, or you guys said that you guys like Zaire Smith as well. So look, they kind of swapped players. Who's going to end up being better than the other? I have no idea, but Zaire Smith is an intriguing prospect. But I think this trade was more about the Sixers being like, I think we got enough guys. We're going to fill our core with, veteran players. We don't really want to add a young guy, at least as a major part of their core. You know what I mean? I think Zaire Smith is going to develop over the next couple of years. He's not going to make an impact this next season. And then they just protected their future with that pick. They got a pick in the future. So 3 years down the road, they could add another guy or use that as a potential trade chip to get a better veteran guy to help out their young core. So I thought it was a great trade for both teams, but I think the 76ers came out on top there. But I want to hear from you guys what you think about Phoenix's draft, getting Aiton and Mikal Bridges. Jake Zarate, shout out to Jake, longtime supporter of the channel. I really appreciate it. You say Winslow is behind pace, though. I agree with you, man. I thought Winslow was awesome coming into the draft at Duke. I love watching him play. I love watching Duke play. He is a little behind in his development. Maybe he's just not in the right situation. I don't know. Miami's a pretty good situation. That's a pretty good culture there. They got veterans like Udonis Haslam, getting these young guys on the right path, letting them know when they're making a dumb decision or a smart decision. And in Miami, you have to be at your peak physical condition. That's one of the things about Miami. They measure body fat. They have a hard training regimen. So it seems like a great situation, but for some reason, Justice Winslow hasn't really panned out. Um, Jake Zarate also adds DeAndre Ayton don't play defense. I agree with you, man. He did it in college, but he didn't really have to. That's the thing about NCAA now is college basketball is these guys really aren't motivated. That's why guys like Grayson Allen really stand out because that guy wants to win at that level. That's why guys like Draymond stand out because he really wanted to win every game. You could play a game of backgammon with Draymond, and he's gonna want to destroy you. But like guys like DeAndre Ayton, I mean, they're not really playing for anything there. It's just not a big deal for them. That could still happen in the NBA where he thinks he's a big shot, he's way too talented, and he doesn't have to put in that blue collar hard work and play defense. But I think he has a physical tools. He has the IQ to be a great defender. It's just, does he have the will? We're gonna have to wait and see. Things might change for him. People change. He's a young guy. If you think about if you're older than 19, you think about when you were 19. I mean, you should be a different person. At least I think that's a Muhammad Ali quote. If you're not different in when you were a kid, then something's wrong with you or something like that. Anyways, let's move on to the second pick, the Sacramento Kings. Boy, Sacramento. Can we get some Kings fans in the chat, please? I need to hear from you guys because if I were you, I'd be really concerned right now. I know you guys like Marvin Bagley as a player. I do too. But look, Luka Doncic, we could talk all day that the Kings should have took Luka Doncic there. They didn't. They took Marvin Bagley. But what happened after the draft really concerned me. Vlade Divac, the GM of the Kings, he said that, I quote, "We're a super team. We're just young." Oh my goodness. Vlade, my man Vlade, my Yugoslavian. If you didn't know already, I'm half Slovenian. My family came from Yugoslavia. All the politics, we're not going to get into it. But Slovenia, Yugoslavia, it's kind of, sort of, maybe the same thing. Uh, Vlade, my man, one of my favorite players ever, man. You guys aren't a super team. You're young, but you're not a super team. I thought this was an interesting pick because, they have a ton of forwards. I like Willie Cauley-Stein. I love Willie Cauley-Stein. Whenever I watch him play, for some reason, he's a beast. I went to go watch him against the Lakers, Alonzo Ball's first game against De'Aaron Fox in the NBA, and Cauley-Stein was just a beast. Like, he could not miss. I think he had 23 points, double-digit rebounds, 3 blocks. He did get posterized by Alonzo on that alley-oop, but I like Willie Cauley-Stein. I like Scala BCA. I like him. They have Zach Randolph there already. Costa Kufos, I think his corpse is still on the roster. But look, I don't understand why they took another forward. Luka Doncic was sitting right there in an NBA that's all about wings, all about guys who are really positionless. Luka really defines that as a player, whereas Marvin Bagley, it's like you can really only put him at the 4 or 5 spot. But then Vlade said that he can play a little bit of the 3, the small forward. Vlade, what are you even talking? That would be a disaster if Marvin Bagley played small forward. I'm sorry. That's just he's not quick enough with his feet to really stay with guys. You talking about small forward. We're talking about guys like Jason Tatum, LeBron James, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant. These are elite offensive players. And you want to put Marvin Bagley in a position where he's guarding them. I just think that's so short-sighted. But anyways, John Landkamer in the chat says Bagley looks so good in college because of his superior athleticism, and he won't have that in the NBA. You make a good point, John, but, you know, I think that he has really good athleticism, and I think that will translate to the NBA because he also seems to have really good will, drive, and he's really competitive. So that compared with or coupled with his extreme athleticism, I think that's going to work out for him. Think of Russell Westbrook. He's athletic and he's a dog. Like he just wants to kill the guy who's guarding him, kill the rim. You know, um, that reminds me of Marvin Bagley, not obviously as intense as Russell Westbrook or athletic. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he seems like he wants to get it, and that really helps him get those offensive rebounds. Um, but you know, Jando Fabio Chavez in the chat says Kings needed to pick Trae Young. That would be very Kingsy, but I want to do that with the second pick. Maybe if I traded down, I would have done that. But overall, I think the Kings got a good player. I'm just not sure they're thinking of him the right way. I mean, Marvin Bagley at the small forward. Wow, that's going to be tough. Anyways, let's move on to the Atlanta Hawks. Now, this might be the biggest splash of the draft. The Atlanta Hawks originally drafted Luka Doncic, but they made a trade with the Dallas Mavericks for Trae Young and a protected 2019 first round pick. Now, I don't think the protections on that pick have been reported yet, but it is a protected 2019 first round pick. So next year's draft, whatever Dallas's pick is, it's going to the Hawks. But again, there are protections. Maybe it's top 5, top 1, top 3. I don't know. But so basically, the Hawks ended up with Trae Young. That's what happened. Now, when Woj reported that the Hawks and Dallas were looking to swap picks, Luka, Trae Young, I thought the Mavericks were going to send a player to the Hawks. Like the big one would have been Harrison Barnes or Wesley Matthews or something. I just thought the Hawks were going to get a pick player and Trae Young for Luka Doncic, but it ended up just being a pick. And apparently, Zach Lowe reported that the Hawks wanted to put Kent Bazemore in the deal, and they wanted to have the Mavericks send Matthews back to Atlanta. Now, the reason they wanted this was because Kent Bazemore has an extra year on his contract, and the Mavs didn't want that because why would they want to put another year of money on their roster? So basically, what they said was, let's just leave these guys out of it and just swap the picks and stuff like that. That's very interesting. Bazemore, I think he's an okay player, but I think it's interesting that the Hawks didn't get more. I feel like they should have got more, but who knows? The Hawks obviously believe in Trae Young a lot, and I want to hear from you guys in the chat. Right now, I'm looking right off the bat. uh Casa Lars, you guys got some crazy names. You're saying that he's good. He's real good. You know, I like Trae Young, but I said in my last podcast that Big Ten guards shut him down. So what are NBA guards gonna do to him? You know, I think it's a known fact that the NBA is better than the Big Ten. Isn't that a known fact? And I think that Trae Young's gonna have some trouble, at least in his first couple years. He might figure it out. I said this in my last podcast. It took Steph 3-4 years to figure it out. There were flashes, but it really took him 3-4 years to really become the player who he is now. That might be the same situation with Trae Young. So when Trae Young has a bad rookie year, you guys shouldn't jump on the bandwagon of, oh, he's a bust. Oh my God, the Hawks made a mistake. Give it at least 3 years, at least 3-4 years, see what happens to him. But it's going to be interesting. Do you guys think Trae Young is going to be a bust? Jake in the chat says this is a Jake Sparacco. He says Trae Young is a beast. So I'm assuming you don't think he's a bust. Skippy 2100 says he agrees with Jake that Trae Young is a beast. Trae Young is a very cool player. I think worst case scenario, this is my honest opinion. I think worst case scenario, Trae Young is going to be like Jameer Nelson. Like maybe he has 1.5, 2 good seasons where he's an all-star or borderline all-star, but then the rest of his career, he's just like a solid backup guy who can finish fourth quarters in the right situation. That's who I think Trae Young's going to be at his worst, Jameer Nelson. And look, Jameer Nelson helped out Denver. He's helped out a couple teams. He was an all-star on the Magic. who I thought the Magic were going to take Trae Young, and they probably would have. And that's why I think this trade makes a lot of sense for the Hawks and Mavericks, because I think the Mavericks knew the Grizzlies would have taken Dončić with the fourth pick, and I think the Hawks knew the Magic would have took Trae Young with the sixth pick. So basically, the Mavericks said, "Hey, we know you want Trae. We'll pick Trae if you snag Dončić for us, because we don't want him to go to Memphis, and we'll work out a trade from there." And the Hawks were like, "Perfect." We were thinking the same thing. This is all speculation, but I think it worked out perfect for both teams. And I can't wait to talk about Dončić when we get there. But let's take a look at the chat. Jake Zarate says Trae Young is the next Lou Will, maybe. That's good though. Lou Will, sixth man of the year. A lot of teams like Lou Will. They like buying him in the middle of the season, trading for him, buyout, all of that stuff to help them make a playoff push. So I think that's okay. If Trae Young ends up being the next Lou Will, I think that's fine. But the Hawks think he's the next Steph Curry. So we'll have to wait and see. Let's move on to the Memphis Grizzlies with the fourth pick. They selected Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, I thought in my mock draft that Michael Porter Jr. was going to be selected here. I thought he was a sleeper pick, but I guess the medical was too much. That injury scared Memphis too much. And I also think that if the Hawks passed on Dončić, which I didn't think was going to happen, the Grizzlies would have selected Luka Doncic had he been there, but obviously he wasn't. So they went with Jaren Jackson Jr., who's an interesting player and an even more interesting fit around Marc Gasol. Now, I remember saying in my last pod that if the Grizzlies get a guy who could contribute now, a really good rookie who projects to be fantastic, but also can contribute right away, I think that they can make the playoffs because they got Conley, Gasol, a couple of good role players, JaMychal Green, and then they add a guy like Jaren Jackson. Is that the guy who could help them make the playoffs? I think the Grizzlies are a borderline playoff team. They're going to be fighting for that ace spot. Will they actually make the playoffs? I don't know. The West is stacked. The Suns might be in the mix there. Dallas might be a super surprise there if they can get some free agents like DeMarcus Cousins or Clint Capella. There's a lot of things going on in the West. Denver is still going to be good and play for that AC. They might be better. They might get a sixth, fifth, fourth seed. Timberwolves are still going to be there. The West is so stacked. I don't really have much to say on Jaren Jackson Jr., but I do think it's an interesting fit around Marc Gasol because Jaren Jackson Jr. can stretch the floor. He shot 40% from three in college, but Marc Gasol really likes to play around there, especially last year. He was on the top of the key a lot. He likes playing in the middle of the floor at the free throw line at the top of the key, making plays. He can see over the defense. So that means Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to have to be down in the paint more, but he doesn't really have the frame or the weight to really compete with the big bodies down there. But at the same time, the NBA is getting smaller and smaller. So maybe he could survive down there. But I think it's an interesting fit. But other than that, I don't have much to say about Jaren Jackson Jr., but I do think the Grizzlies might be a borderline playoff team. It wouldn't surprise me if they made the playoffs. All right, so let's move on to the Dallas Mavericks. Boy, I can't wait to talk about this because, like I said, I am half Slovenian, and I remember saying coming into this draft, whatever team Luka Doncic goes to, I'm buying that jersey. Now, it would have hurt me a little bit if he went to the Kings because being a Laker diehard, buying a Kings jersey is a little, you can't really do that. But I would have been happy if he went to Sacramento because I live an hour and a half away from there, 2 hours maybe, and I would have been able to see him a lot and root for him as a player because I rep Slovenia. I love Slovenia. It's a beautiful country. If you guys ever have the opportunity of going there, go to Slovenia. Lake Blade. That's a nice lake. Ljubljana is also fantastic. That's the capital there. My family is from Celje and Žalec, so it's a beautiful country. But besides the fact, Luka Doncic to the Dallas Mavericks, I could not be happier for him. And it looks like I'm buying a Dallas jersey, which is okay. The Lakers and Dallas don't really have any bad blood, but they did kick our butts in 2011. But that ended up being the championship team, so I can't be that mad about it. Well, I can be that mad about it because it was an embarrassing display by the Lakers. But let me know in the chat what you guys think about Dončić in Dallas. This is an awesome situation for Dončić. He is a ridiculous fit there, playing next to Dennis Smith Jr. And, I talked about this a little earlier. The NBA is all about getting wing players who can play big, play small, and be just freaks on the floor. And in the current NBA, you have to have a solid backcourt. You look at all the great teams. Let's look at the last four teams in this year's playoffs. We had Golden State, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, KD. That's their perimeter. Houston Rockets, James Harden, Chris Paul, elite backcourt. Add Trevor Ariza, solid next to those guys. Awesome perimeter. Let's go over to Cleveland. Okay, well, they don't have a awesome perimeter. They just have LeBron. But LeBron is LeBron, and he can make up for that. But then we go to the Celtics. They had Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and it would have been Kyrie. So it would have been Kyrie in that awesome perimeter. It's all about having a perimeter game that is elite. And Dončić and Smith Jr. have the potential to have to be an elite backcourt. Now, I think Dončić is way better than Smith. Can they play off each other? I don't know. That's going to be an interesting thing, especially with Rick Carlisle, because Rick Carlisle, it looks like his players have a lot of freedom. However, he's kind of strict. I mean, it didn't work out with Rondo. It was a disaster. And now you look at Rondo in New Orleans and he's flourishing. How come that couldn't happen in Dallas? So it's going to be interesting. But the Mavericks and Carlisle do like to play two guard lineups. I don't think Dennis Smith is going to have a problem with Dončić handling the ball because Dennis Smith played a lot with Yogi Ferrell, JJ Barea, Devin Harris last season in his rookie year. So I think he's going to be okay playing off the ball when Dončić is handling and passing it. Dončić is an elite passer. So I'm really excited to see him in Dallas. Another reason why I like him in Dallas is because Dallas, it's a short history, but they do not waste their stars. Dirk was a star, and they did everything possible, at least prior to the last 5 years, to make sure that they were in contention, they were title contenders, and that Dirk had guys around him that would help him contend. And I think Dončić has the potential to be a superstar. And I think Dallas is going to do everything in their power to make sure that they don't waste their superstars prime. So that's why I like Dončić to the Mavericks. Let's take a look at the chat. David Smith says Dončić will be a sensation in Dallas. I agree with you, David. I think Dallas is going to love Dončić, and I know Dallas fans are ecstatic that they got him. Let's take a look at the chat. David Smith says, plus moving Wes Matthews to the bench would be great. Now, I'm not sure if Wesley Matthews is going to the bench, but I think in a role where he doesn't have to do too much offensively now that they got Dennis Smith in his second year, Luka Doncic, who's an offensive genius. He can handle the ball and play make. I think that Wesley Matthews in a more limited role where he just has to shoot open shots, catch and shoot, his value is going to go even higher because when you're relying on Wesley Matthews to drop 20 a game just to be in the game in the fourth quarter, that's not good. So I like that. Now, the Mavericks need to get a free agent big man. If they do that, I think they might be playoff bound. If they get Clint Capella, they have cap space. They can afford to overpay someone because they got two young guys on rookie contracts. I think they have room for one more max salary. DeMarcus Cousins is a little weird there. I don't know how that fits with Dennis Smith Jr. and Dončić. With DeMarcus Cousins, they all kind of need the ball. I would go after Clint Capella, but it looks like Houston is going to match anything that he gets. But if I were the Mavericks, I would force Houston to make sure that they have to pay the max for Clint Capella. That way, if they do match, you get Houston on the books for 4 or 5 years, and that's a division rival. And, maybe in a couple of years, it doesn't work out. Chris Paul can't stay on the floor. James Harden's unhappy. Who knows? Now they're locked up to all that salary, and you as a division rival have all this money, and you can kind of prey on their bad situation. But it's going to be interesting. But at the end of the day, I like Dončić in Dallas. So it's going to be really interesting. Now, the chat, The Rock says, I hope it's The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. You're my favorite actor. The Mavs easily could have drafted Dončić third overall. They probably had buyer's remorse with Trae Young, but the Mavs already had a good point guard anyway, so I don't get it. I'm not sure I get your comment. The Mavs could have easily drafted Dončić third overall. They had the fifth pick, homeboy. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're trying to say there. I'm just happy that Dončić is in a great situation. It looks like the Hawks are a long way from being in any title contention, and putting Dončić there would have been like he might have never gotten into the playoffs in the first 5 years of his career. So I'm happy that he's with the Mavericks. Okay, let's move on to the Orlando Magic. They drafted Mo Bamba, and Mo Bamba was a guy whose draft stock was rising throughout the entire draft, especially at the combine. He had amazing stats, but I think the Magic really wanted Trae Young here. And when Trae Young was off the board, they just went with the best player available because they don't need another center. And unfortunately for Mo Bamba, who is a guy that I don't love, but I'm intrigued by him. I know a lot of people who told me that they think he's a bust. They don't like him. I don't know if he's a bust. It's possible to tell, but I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of Mo Bamba in the chat? Let me know. But I think they wanted Trae Young. He wasn't available. They took the best player available. They snagged Bamba. He's not a good fit. They already got a couple bigs. Can he play next to Aaron Gordon? Sure, he could, but is it a perfect fit? No, not absolutely. They also don't have a point guard. And if Mo Bamba went to a place who had a great point guard who could play make and help him with his limited offensive repertoire, that would have been great for him. But the Magic don't have that. They don't have a point guard that can help Mo Bamba's limited. Who's going to be throwing Mo Bamba lobs in Orlando? Evan Fournier? Please. Come on. He's a shooter. He's a scorer. He's not a playmaker. Aaron Gordon? As much as I would like that, I would much rather have Aaron Gordon catching lobs. So it's just not a good fit. I like Bamba, like I said, but the situation here just might ruin him. It's unfortunate. We've seen this happen a ton of times where guys just get into bad situations and they don't ever become the player that we thought he was going to be. But uh Curtis Dalton says, Mo Bamba, I am sorry. I think he's saying that he's sorry that he went to Orlando. Um, Eduardo Lopez says Bamba will be Clint Capella. That's interesting. I definitely see that. I think the best case scenario for Bamba is his floor is Clint Capella. That's the best thing. He might, I don't know, he could be Rudy Gobert, he could be Clint Capella, he could be a lot of things. He could just be Mo Bamba, a new type of unicorn. He could be like a s- the new age Dikembe Mutombo, like defensive stopper, but also really good on offense. Maybe hit 2 threes a game just to keep the defense off balance. I don't know. I just hope that Nike signs him so we can get the Mo Bamba colorway of his sneakers. Okay, let's move on to the Bulls. They selected Wendell Carter Jr. And this is an interesting pick. There were a lot of rumors about Michael Porter Jr. at this spot. I think that would have been a good fit. Instead, they went with Wendell Carter Jr. Maybe they thought he was the best player available because I know the Grizzlies and Wendell Carter Jr. were kind of being thrown around before the draft. I think it's an interesting pick because with the fit with Lauri Markkanen, that's a slow front court. There's not a lot of foot speed there. Can they both be on the floor at the same time against elite backcourts like Houston, uh, Golden State? Can Markkanen and Wendell Carter survive on the court at the same time against elite teams? Boston Celtics in their conference. I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. It could be. I like Markkanen. I like Wendell Carter individually. I'm just not sure how I like them together. I would have drafted Michael Porter Jr. here. That's just me. I seeing in the chat as well. James Ashik Ashikyan, you guys got some crazy names. That's awesome. He says, I wish we would have got Michael Porter Jr. I'm assuming you're a Bulls fan. I love watching the Bulls. The Derrick Rose era just really is close to my heart. So I like when the Bulls are good. I think Michael Porter Jr. would have been a great fit there too with Zach LaVine, Chris Dunn, Michael Porter Jr., Lauri Markkanen playing the five, whoever you want at the four, maybe Michael Porter at the four. That would have been really interesting. Instead, they go Wendell Carter Jr. I think he's a solid player, but he could be the next Al Horford. But will he fit with Lauri Markkanen? I don't know. I think this is a sleeper trade chip. Maybe not this year, but next year they say, "Hey, both of our guys had okay years, but they would have been way better on their own." So they trade, they could do that. I don't know. All right, let's move on. Before we move on to the Cavs pick, let me just head over to the chat. Alberto Cabello says Michael Porter Jr. might not even play next season, though he's a risk. You're right. You're right, Alberto. Michael Porter Jr. is a risk. However, you know, Joel Embiid didn't play for 2 years. He was a risk. Now look at him. I'm not saying Michael Porter Jr. is as good as Joel Embiid, but I am saying similar situations here. And they're so young. He's so young. He could bounce back from this injury, no problem. He could have it lingering for his whole career, or he could bounce back. Both situations are very plausible. But I think we forget that Michael Porter Jr. was the highest rated player by far by pretty much everyone who scouts at the high school level. He was the number one guy, but he had this injury and he slipped to 14. I mean, that's a big drop. Maybe there's some great doctors out there. Maybe a doctor who NBA teams trust said, guys, don't pick Michael Porter Jr. This is a bad injury, and that's why he fell. Denver said, screw it. We're gonna pick him. We'll get to that in a second. But um, let's move on to the Cavs pick. They chose Collin Sexton. And hey, I got it right, guys. My mock draft was, let's see, what did I get right with my mock draft? Ayton, I got right. Bagley, I got right. I technically got the Hawks pick right, even though they traded it. I got the Cavs right. That's pretty much all I got right there. Um, but hey, I got it right. The Cavs select Collin Sexton Jr. or not junior. There's a lot of juniors, third and fourth in this draft, so you're gonna have to excuse that mishap. But they choose Collin Sexton. I think Collin Sexton's awesome. I love this guy. I think he's kind of like best case scenario, Chris Paul's mentality, like that fighter, that feistiness, that dog, that winner in Eric Bledsoe's body. Like you just watch him play, he looks like a young Eric Bledsoe, big, almost kind of like a running back, kind of. He needs to beef up a little bit more, but he gets to the rim. He's tough to stop. He gets fouled a lot. He finishes after contact. That's how I think Colin Sexton is. And Eduardo Lopez says Colin Sexton got that Rondo dog. I agree with you. Jake Sarate says Colin Sexton reminds me a lot of Baron Davis. Wow, I haven't heard of that. Let me think. Little bit, young Baron Davis, a little bit. I think Baron was just a little taller and a little more athletic. Skippy 2100 says, "Do you think Sexton can have at least a little bit to play with LeBron's decision?" I don't. LeBron's gonna do. They could have drafted anyone here. LeBron's gonna do what LeBron is gonna do. But as far as Colin Sexton, he came from Alabama and he had a game. If you guys didn't know this, he had a game where he had to play 3-on-5. Something happened where guys fouled out, guys came off the bench, they got ejected, and Alabama had to play with three guys against five. And he almost won that game single-handedly. I mean, just think about it. 3 against 5. Now, I know it's tough if you're the other team, you don't really play against three guys, but still, double team him something, trap him something, make him pass the ball. He just went coast to coast time and time and time again. And I think that game really helped him. Now, I don't know Colin Sexton. I didn't really know of him before that game, really, just a little bit, just hearing him on like Rivals and NBA Draft.net. But, games like that can really change somebody, and I think that game might have done that for him where he's like, "Look, I know how important my teammates are now. I don't ever wanna be in that situation." And look, they literally played 3 against 5, but sometimes you have players who play 3 against 5. Kobe did that, where it's like he doesn't even use his teammates. It was like 1 against 5. Even though there were 5 guys out there on the floor, it just felt like it was Kobe versus the other team. And I think that game helped Sexton figure out that he's really good, first of all, because the 5 guys couldn't stop him, but also that his teammates are important and it's important to get those guys involved. So I think that game really changed him. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see him develop over the years. I like him. I'm on the Colin Sexton bandwagon. I really do. He also was quoted saying after the draft to LeBron, not like to LeBron, but through the camera, "Let's get back to the finals." What? Colin, let's be real. You can't be throwing out quotes like that. I mean, you got to be a little more discreet. He's just like, "Let's get back to the finals." He thinks he's going to go to the finals with LeBron. The I love the mentality, but look, if LeBron leaves, you're going to get back to the lottery. with your own pick, not Boston's Nets pick. Okay, so be careful what you wish for there. Um, I see in the chat Victor asking me about Grayson Allen. Don't worry, we will get there. I have a lot to say about that. But let's move on to the 76ers quickly. They drafted Mikal Bridges. I thought this was an awesome pick. Local product, perfect fit with the team. He had a great moment with his mom on TV, who, by the way, is the vice president of HR for the 76ers. So it's just like this great story. And every draft has that story. Like if you remember Jimmy Butler, the Bulls drafted him. The Blind Side had came out not long before that, and it was kind of the same situation. He got kicked out when he was 14. He was homeless. His family brought him in. There's always that one story in the draft, and it looked like Mikal Bridges was that story. He's staying home. His mom works with the team, and then boom, they traded him. Uh, but it was a good trade. They got Zaire Smith and a potentially good pick from the Heat, like I talked about when I talked about the Suns. So Mikal Bridges goes to the Suns, and the Sixers get Zaire Smith, who's another good fit, similar type of player, different play styles, but similar like body and position. And a lot of people in the draft wanted Zaire Smith. I know for a fact, it was reported again by Zach Lowe that a lot of people were on the phone trying to, I think it was the Denver Nuggets. They were on the phone trying to get Zaire Smith, but Michael Porter Jr. fell in their hands, so they had to pick him. But they wanted Zaire Smith as well, but they couldn't get him. Um, Look, Mikal Bridges, awesome player. They let him go. Zaire Smith here. It's a tough situation. Mikal Bridges was at a 76ers press conference and then they traded him. It's tough, but either way, I think both teams got what they wanted there. All right, so let's move on to we're gonna skip the Hornets and the Clippers picks. I think they're great. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I like Miles Bridges, but I just really don't have much to say about that. There are some trades happening there, which I thought was weird. But let's move on to the Denver Nuggets and let's talk about Michael Porter Jr. Now, like I said, I thought the Grizzlies were a shot to get Michael Porter Jr. at 4. I thought the Bulls were a shot to get Michael Porter Jr. at 7. I thought the Knicks might swing on Michael Porter Jr. That's a very Knicksy type of thing, big name. I know a lot of people wanted him to go to 76ers. I just didn't see it. Um, I thought since Mike Porter Jr. fell to the Clippers, they were for sure going to take him, but they didn't. He fell to the last pick in the lottery to the Denver Nuggets. And I just want to hear from you guys what you think about Michael Porter Jr. Can he bounce back from this injury? Do you like him? Do you not like him? Like I talked about, they wanted Zaire Smith, but they just couldn't pass up on Porter. It's worth it. They can afford to swing on Michael Porter because of their roster. They have a starting 5 already. You know what I mean? They got Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Wilson Chandler, who just opted into his contract, Nikola Jokic, Paul Millsap. They got guys. So this is really a what is it? Low risk, high reward, even though he's a high risk, if that makes sense. But it's a low risk because if he turns out to be nothing, he's just the next Greg Oden. You still got guys. It might hurt you in the long term, but in the short term, no big deal. They got a good roster. And like I said earlier, they're still in play for the playoffs. And adding Michael Porter Jr., who could end up being one of the better players in this draft, like it was projected just a year ago, they could end up with one of the best players in this draft at number 14. So amazing value. All he needs to do is stay healthy. I think he's going to be good. I think he's young. He's going to bounce back from this injury. I think he's going to be good. Um, Eduardo Lopez says Michael Porter Jr. has no dog. I think he can let an injury get to his mind. I don't know, Eduardo. All the quotes that I've been hearing from him leading up to the draft were really positive. He seems confident. He's been quoted saying, I'm better than all these guys. A year ago, I was better than all these guys. Now I'm better than all these guys. So I don't know if the injury can get to his head. I think that his body can limit him, but I don't think the mental aspect is a big deal. I think he's there mentally. Um, so yeah, Michael Porter Jr. to the Nuggets, excellent pick. All right, let's move on. And the last 3 things I want to talk about here are things that I thought were very interesting about the draft. First, let's talk about the Jazz. They drafted Grayson Allen. Now, I love Grayson Allen, but I don't defend all the antics of Grayson Allen, but I love the competitiveness. Those are my kind of guys, the guys who want to win. That's who I like. Grayson Allen just wants to win, and sometimes the competitiveness gets the best of him, but at the bottom line, it's great entertainment, right? Like watching him trip guys. Now you can get hurt. I'm not saying you should trip guys, but come on, we watch UFC. We watch guys almost kill each other in the octagon. What's different about Grayson Allen tripping a guy? You know what I mean? I love watching Grayson Allen, and I think he's an awesome fit with Utah because Utah has their share of dirty players in the past. For real. I mean, think about John Stockton, one of the dirtiest secretly dirtiest players ever. Like he would just dead leg you on picks, stick those leg outs with them short shorts. You thought those short shorts were for comfort? No, they're for function. So he could spread them out more so he can, stab guys with his knee and get them dead legs. I mean, look, Hornacek's pretty dirty, in a good way. I'm just having fun. I'm not calling anyone a bad person. I'm just saying Grayson Allen, I think the Jazz fans are really going to like him and I think he's a great fit. He could potentially be a better version of Joe Ingles. Now he's not as good of a shooter as Joe Ingles, but I think everything else, the solid passing, not turning the ball over, making the right play, getting into guys' grills. We saw Joe Ingles and Paul George kind of get into it. Paul George really hates Joe Ingles. He called him some really bad words in that series, which was excellent to watch, by the way. Great TV. Grayson Allen could end up being the next Joe Ingles or better Joe Ingles replacement, move Joe Ingles to the bench, or maybe have Grayson come off the bench, whatever way. I think that this is a great pick. And I like it even better that Mitchell was happy. Now, we forget these guys were rivals in college, and Mitchell crashed his interview. It honestly looked like they were best friends, like that just saw each other for the first time in years. I think Mitchell's happy about it. Grayson Allen's happy about it. I really hope Grayson Allen turns out to be a great player. If you want a shocking watch, go watch Grayson Allen's high school mixtape. This dude is sneaky athletic. He's yamming on fools. It is really fun to watch. Go watch the Grayson Allen high school mixtape. It's really fun to watch. All right. Next thing I want to say, Indiana Pacers, they picked Aaron Holiday. I like Aaron Holiday. Do I think he was passed on a lot? I don't know. I think he was probably drafted in the right area, after, between 14 and 23-ish. Uh, the Pacers ended up selecting him, I think 22, maybe 21. I like him. He could be a Collison replacement. Now, Collison played fairly well in the playoffs. He had his moments, but I think Aaron Holiday has the potential to be a better version of whatever Collison it can contribute or provide to the Pacers. I think the worst case scenario, he's the solid backup point guard who plays 15 minutes a game. Maybe he finishes the game, but he just comes in there and he just settles everything down. He's really calculated type of player. He shot 40% from three. He scored 20 points a game and he had almost 6 assists a game, which is really hard to do in college to get high number of assists. Six in college is the equivalent of like 8 or 9 in the NBA. For real. It's really hard to get assists because guys are playing zone in college. You don't have as many scores in college. It's hard to get almost 6 assists a game. And Aaron Holiday did that. The guy put up stats. I think he's a good fit next to Oladipo. The questions defensively remain. He's a little small, but that Holiday family, Drew, obviously, we saw what he could do in the playoffs. Justin Holiday, I believe, is the other guy. Now we got Aaron Holiday here. I think that's a good pick for the Pacers. That could end up being a very good value pick for Indiana. So I like that. Jake Zarate says Collison expendable with the Holiday pick. Yeah, like I said, I think he is expendable, or at the worst case, they get two, guys who could play 23 minutes a game each at that position, and they don't really lose anything there. You know what I mean? Like they could end up being equals almost, so that they don't really lose any production when one subs for the other. So I don't know if expendable is the right word, but I think this is just a good pick. Mark Abrigana says, talk about a steal pick. Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I think this is a steal. Aaron Holiday, solid player. I'm going to be excited to see how he fits with the Pacers, and that Indiana team's very intriguing. I'm still waiting on the Miles Turner come up. I like Miles Turner, so let's watch out for that. All right, last thing I want to talk about are my Lakers, baby. My LA Lakers. Now, this draft, I wasn't really looking forward to anything because, um, it's really about free agency for the Lakers this season. But I was kind of hoping to get Anthony Simmons just because that's fun. He's a high school kid. He could end up being like a super duper steal. I don't know. He ended up going to Portland. But what we ended up with, I'm actually pretty happy about. We ended up taking a couple guys, but mainly Mo Wagner, which is spelled Wagner, but he's German, so it's Wagner. Um, he's from the Deutschland, uh, which I have a funny story about Germany. I was in Germany when I was like 14, and my mom's driving on the Autobahn there, which, if you didn't know what the Autobahn is, it's the freeway there, the interstate, and you could drive like 150 miles an hour. There's like no speed limit. There's a speed limit, but it's really high. And so we're driving, and I see a sign, and it says Ausfahrts next right. And I'm like, 14 years old, right? I'm like, haha, fart. That town has fart in it. And then like 10 minutes later, I see another sign that says Ausfarts, next right. I go, oh, look, there it is again. 5 minutes later, Ausfarts, next right. I'm like, wow, Ausfarts a really big town. 5 minutes later, Ausfarts, next right. I'm like, oh my goodness, this town is huge. 5 minutes later, Ausfarts, next right. I said, you know what, Mom, do you even know where you're going? You pass Ausfarts like 7 times already. And she just laughs and she says, that's because Ausfarts means exit. So stupid. I felt so dumb. Of course it means exit. I thought it was a town, but so if you ever go to Germany, Ausfarts means exit. But Mo Wagner, this guy has a lot of swag. I like his game. Shoot a little bit, go inside a little bit, got decent touch. The only thing you're really worried about is his frame. Can he physically compete in the NBA? Um, John Landkamer says Wagner was a beast at Michigan. He was, and he kind of King Law says Wagner could be a Sabonis type player, which would be awesome. Sabonis was solid in the playoffs, especially switched onto LeBron. Really impressed with what he was able to do. But I agree with you guys. Wagner was fun to watch in college. I hope he could do that in the NBA. But again, the question is physically, can he compete in the paint with those bigger, more athletic guys? I don't know. What I do know is I really like his drive. He was really getting on his teammates when they were getting kicked out of the tourney. He showed up to play. Like you watch the Warriors, Draymond shows up every night. You know, the other guys might not show up. Steph might just be in a daze because it comes too easy for him. KD, same thing. Clay, being Clay. But Draymond shows up every night and he will yell at those guys like, I showed up. Are you going to show up? Mo Wagner is that type of guy. I'm not saying he's going to be Draymond Green. I'm just saying he's got that mentality of I came here to freaking play. Did you guys come? Okay, screw you guys. I'm playing. I'm gonna do this then. So I think it's gonna be really interesting, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait if LeBron goes to the Lakers and Mo Wagner is getting minutes. That's gonna be fun because you remember Cedi Osman just was loving every second. Every time LeBron did something crazy, Cedi Osman was like the first guy off the bench celebrating. Mo Wagner, if he teams up with LeBron, that's gonna give Mo Wagner a license to talk smack like so badly. He's just gonna be talking. So he's gonna have a lot of great blurbs with the media, just talking smack because he's got the best player on the team. I think that's gonna be classic. If you could get anyone close to LeVar Ball mentally, vocally, Mo Wagner might be that guy, which is interesting. I just compared Mo Wagner to LeVar Ball, but seriously, Mo Wagner, he's got a big mouth and it's going to be fun to watch. He's going to be a guy you guys, if you're not a Laker fan, you guys are going to love to hate because he's annoying. In a great entertaining way. Uh but there you guys go. Those were my thoughts on the draft. I thought it was a good draft. I thought there's a lot of good players and some cool things happen, some trades, some interesting fits. But I want to thank you guys for joining the chat. If you guys want anything else to say in the chat, be sure to let me know right now before we get off. I do want to remind you that this podcast is available for download in audio podcast quality. The quality sounds totally different on both SoundCloud and the Apple's iTunes podcast app. I will put the links in the description box below. Be sure to subscribe to that Apple podcast playlist. It will help me out a lot if you rate it and leave a review. Just a couple words, guys. Say, enjoyed the stream, something, just a couple words, rate it however many stars you want. I really would appreciate that, guys. I'm going to put the link in the description box below. I'm actually going to put the link in the chat right now so you guys can do that for me. That would help me out a ton. There it is. Seriously, guys, I'm going to keep this going twice a week. I'm thinking Monday, Friday, right after the weekend, right before the weekend. And of course, we will have emergency podcasts. If anything crazy happens in free agency, I'm going to hop on and we're going to talk about it. I want to get you guys more involved with the chat. So be sure you guys come correct with your opinions. That way you can be in the podcast. I'm going to put the link one more time. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. That helps me out a ton. And be sure to download SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, subscribe, all that stuff. I love you guys. This is not possible without you. I can't wait to keep this series going. It's going to be fun, guys. So thank you so much. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.